Hello everybody, welcome to Talk About Houses. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
About 9 years ago, I did a video where Warren Buffett was explaining that everyone should go out there and buy a house. I'm going to put that video right here so you can go back and watch it. Don't watch it now, wait till the end, it'll be off to the side, but go and click on that and you can watch that video. Like I said, it was 9 years ago that I made the video, but it was something on what Warren Buffett had said on TV, on a news show. And so what's interesting is that he said something else on there that was very powerful. And I think it took 9 years for it to actually happen. So here, we're going to show you the clip. Here is what Warren Buffett said 9 years ago.
If I had a way of buying a couple 100,000 single-family homes and had a way of managing, the management is enormous. It was really a problem because they're one by one. They're not like apartment houses. So, but I would load up on them, and I would take mortgages out at very, very low rates. But if anybody is thinking about buying homes, 5 years ago they couldn't buy them fast enough because they thought they were going to go up, and now they don't buy them because they think they're going to go down, and interest rates are far lower.
So you can't write a check. At least you couldn't 9 years ago, and buy 200,000 houses.
That's true.
But potentially soon, maybe in the near future, you'll be able to do that.
Absolutely. So the way you'll be able to do that is because now we have all these institutional investors that own tens of thousands of homes. So for example, you've got hedge funds, you've got BlackRock, you've got things like Zillow and Open Door and all these big conglomerates that own lots and lots of homes. Yep. So while Warren Buffett would have had to negotiate with individual sellers 10 years ago, today he could do it by simply going to one or two of these large institutional buyers that own these homes and purchase large volumes of homes in one shot.
Yeah, and don't think for a second that these flipping companies, Open Door, Zillow, and OfferPad, and a bunch of other ones, that they're only going to be flipping. They're doing the flipping, I think, is a proof of concept, figure out how to get really efficient at it. And to put themselves in a position where at some point they could just maybe buy and hold the homes. Especially if you're getting a discount, it becomes very attractive to do that. And the other thing too is, remember, you can't always flip. The market is not always, it's been good the last few years to flip, but it's not always a good market to flip. The other thing that's interesting is that a long time ago, if you wanted to buy a house, you lived in it or you invested, you bought a rental house, and you maybe owned one or two or three investment homes, but there was not really, other than HUD. HUD was actually the only real massive owner of single-family homes. HUD owned a bunch of houses, but that's the government. So you can't and government wasn't going to sell the houses on the open market. They wanted to control the houses for public housing and things like that. So, part of the massive buying is what's squeezing everybody, right? It's a big squeeze. Effectively, these Wall Street firms are making a market. They're making a market that they'll be able to control, because individuals will do whatever suits them at the moment. But once a few big firms own a large amount of real estate, they'll really be able to control the market.
Absolutely, yes. And one of the other things that Warren Buffett said was that with owning single-family homes, it's different than owning apartments because the property management of it is much more difficult. But you're seeing that you've got, again, going back to some of these big companies like Redfin and Open Door and that sort of thing, that they have brokerages on the ground. So that means that they can buy these homes and now they can manage them with their employees. So it's a very interesting thing that's developing. So before, Warren Buffett was concerned that, well, even if I could buy 200,000 houses, I couldn't have a way of managing them.
Yeah.
But now there is a way. So they're not only buying them, but they're setting themselves up for managing them in-house as well.
And the management model for property management has always been fragmented. the investor goes, buys a house. Either the agent they used to buy the house manages, most don't because that's not what they do, or they go turn it over to a property manager. And then, a really big property manager will manage properties for a lot of clients. But what you see, like for example with BlackRock, they were at the trustee sale in a bunch of markets buying up houses back 8 or 9 years ago, and there were actually some markets where they actually owned more houses than everybody. So if you wanted to rent a house and you called them and said, hey, I want to rent this house, they said, well, it's not available, but we have these 8 other houses in the area. And then you could rent one of those, and they would sort of, once again, the market that they built, that they owned, they could control a little bit because now they could actually divert people to their properties for management. I think the other thing that's going to be interesting that we're going to see is there is going to be a startup that figures out how to make a lot of the really sticky points of doing property management more frictionless. There's a bunch of small ones out there. There's a bunch of software as a service type companies that provide tools that are really, for the most part, they're really clunky still because there hasn't been a lot of agents using property management software. So they just use whatever's out there, and then there's no incentive to make it better. But I think we're going to see that'll be another big thing, that the big companies that are managing properties, I think they're going to get really hit with some potential good tech startups that are doing this, that make it easier for property management to happen.
Absolutely. Especially now, there's going to be an incentive for this tech to actually be developed because you're going to have these big clients that are willing to pay big money to make the whole system more efficient and more effective and more responsive.
And the other thing too is, because we're starting to see this with apartments, where they're moving to more an app-based solution, to where everything, including paying your rent, reporting, hey, something's right, my door, a knob is broken in my apartment, or things like that. People are used to using apps. So once you get all the people used to using some piece of technology, it won't be that hard to just tell your renter, hey, when you have a problem, this is how you do it. You take a picture of it, you send it through the app, and then it all gets managed virtually. You don't have to call anybody. You'll get notifications and stuff like that. That's going to happen. I think that's going to be something, if you're an entrepreneur out there and you're trying to figure out how do I manage repairs and collect rents and everything, there needs to be a single solution for that. Because this whole nonsense of you go to a website or you go into an MLS to go find the property, and then you have to get someone to show it to you, and then every property manager has different requirements, and then if you try to rent one and you don't get it, and you try to rent another one and you don't get it, you get your credit report pulled a bunch of times. And then the whole part of living in the house, like paying all your rents and doing that, reporting things that have happened to the house, there needs to be a much simpler solution. So if you're an entrepreneur, that's something that you should try to figure out how to make happen. And then what I would do if I was building something like that, I would go find out who's buying all the houses, and I say, hey, we want to partner with you. Tell us how we can do this. And then the other thing I would do is say, why don't you invest in us?
Yes.
We're raising some money. You become an investor. You'll have a seat on our board, and you'll be able to do all this. You'll have us in your back pocket. You'll have this tech, and you'll have an ownership in the tech. So when other companies, your competitors, start using our tech, that you'll be making money from your competitors.
Right. So there's always an opportunity out there. You just have to look for it and execute. Yeah.
So I really think that the thing Warren Buffett said about you can't just go out and buy a couple 100,000 houses. I do see a demand in the future for big institutional investors to have lots of real estate assets. That does not mean that they will go out there and dump them all. Actually, there'll be an incentive for them not to do that, because they realize if they dump real estate, they can crash the market and they hurt themselves, right? And they could effectively corner the market. I think long term, what's going to happen potentially is you're going to see it's going to be harder for people to buy houses. They're going to be more expensive, right?
Yes.
There'll probably be more price stability because there'll be a smaller pool of homes that are transactable by individual sellers.
Right. So I think what you're going to see is as individual sellers put their homes on the market, you're going to see that these institutional investors come calling, and they're looking to increase their holdings in specific markets, which again, like Todd said, it will squeeze out individual buyers because these institutional investors are not as price sensitive as individual buyers are.
Yeah, and the other thing too is, if big money is buying properties, they're not buying them to flip, they're going to hold them and rent them. And if they're holding them and renting them, that means that the renter class of people is going to increase. Right. It's going to have to increase.
Well, it will. It will have to increase simply because that there will continue to be a shortage of properties. So if a shortage of properties continues, that means that there are less homes for individuals to buy. Less homes means higher prices, and that means that more people are priced out and they're going to have to rent.
Yep. Anyway, if you don't think we're right, then what I suggest you do is you subscribe to the channel, and then that way in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5, 10 years, if we're still doing the blog in 10 years. Now, we've been doing the blog now for like 11 years or something, because remember I referenced a video that we did 9 years ago. So you'll be able to find out, and if we're wrong, we'll say, hey, we completely screwed that up. But we were right about the inflation, thing, and that we said 9 years ago as far as is an asset class and being a hedge against inflation, and that was accurate. And then Warren Buffett sort of seeded the whole thing with, if I could write a check and buy 200,000 houses to have managed, I'd do it today. So which is always great, because could you imagine when there were a ton of houses on the property, if someone just walked in and bought them all? That would you could fix the market, because the market took years to recover from for the properties to get absorbed, and it could be absorbed instantly by a single buyer. That would put those funds in large control over being able to fix the market when it keep it from crashing, things like that.
Well, so that sort of happened toward the end, because toward the end, what the government was doing was they were doing these bulk sales where they were taking properties from multiple markets and packaging them, and so only big institutional investors could purchase them. So there would be packages of a minimum of like 50 houses, which of course individual investors couldn't buy.
Yeah.
And they were in different markets in different states, and that's
they were like randomly put together.
Right.
It wasn't here's 50 houses in San Diego.
No.
It was 50 houses all over the U.S., and some of them were rural, some of them were in cities. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what started the whole thing way back when, and I think that's when the government kind of got on board with that. Said, hey, you know what? If we did this, there would be investors, and these would be institutional investors who would come to the party. They would buy all these houses. We wouldn't have to fix them, and then that would help stabilize the market that much faster. And that did happen.
Yep. Anyway. So that's our video for today. We're going to do more videos on this topic, so please subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave your comments. What else?
Like us, share the video, and we'll see you on the next video.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.